All right. Thanks for hitting the record button for us, Christy. So we'll go ahead and start off our November 2020 Cascade ASSP chapter meeting. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm Dennis Hughes, the current acting president for the chapter, and I'll be starting us off for our somewhat abbreviated agenda for today. So I'm going to try and do the PowerPoint. Oh, success so far. Okay, I already said that. You know where we are. All right, so the first thing that I want to get to is really exciting. Last month, we went over the current chapter officer positions and appointments that exist. And one of the openings was for a vice president position. And so I did receive contact later from one person that was interested. And I wanted to go ahead and see if we couldn't capitalize on this excitement before he decides maybe he doesn't want to do it. So our candidate that has expressed interest is Mr. Jim Nusser. And Jim has been a great colleague to work with for a while. He's with SAFE. He's been with SAFE for, what is it, probably 18 years now, Jim, I think probably. And he's a senior safety management consultant there for quite a while. He's got a master's from OSU, at the Environmental Safety and Health. And he has thrown his hat into the ring to be considered as the vice president. And I thought we could open it up as long as we have, I didn't get a good track of who all we have with us today. We need at least 5 members. And I know we have Lance, Christy, myself. I just want to make sure that we have our quorum before I open it up for a verbal vote.
It looks like we also have Jim Johnson, Jason Wallace, Mark Walker, Naomi. These are the ones I know for sure are members, and I'm sure many of the rest of you are also members, but I just don't have as much knowledge about that. Paul Fernari. I think you have at least 5.
Okay, that puts us over it. Great. So everybody get your mute buttons ready. Give you a little bit of a heads up there that we're going to do a verbal vote. And I want to give Jim a moment to speak if there's anything you want to say before we open it up for the election.
I would look forward to the opportunity to serve our chapter. And as Dennis mentioned, been involved not on the board, but in another capacity, attending our chapter for a while, and have had past folks at SAFE attend, and would be interested to see what I could do to kind of further our chapter mission and help Oregon continue to become a safer state. So that if there's questions, be happy to address them, and be happy to talk a little more about. But that kind of keep it brief.
Excellent. Dennis, for point of order, do we also need to take nominations in case there's other people who were interested that we're not aware of?
That was my thought too, just the same idea as Jim was talking. So yes, would like to open it up. We opened it up last month for anyone that be interested, but we'll give it one last chance here if anyone else would like to express interest, and we could work through that. So we'll give it just a minute here. All right. So I don't know the actual structure of how we want to do this, but I would say that we should move to vote now. I don't want to make a unilateral decision. So if anyone else would like to support that or say it's a bad idea.
I'll second that.
Awesome. Thanks a bunch. Okay, so voting time for all those that are in favor of electing Mr. Jim Nusser as our vice president of the ASSP Cascade chapter. Let's hear the ayes.
Aye.
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 Great. And any nays? Okay, great. It sounds unanimous, Jim. You have been elected the new vice president. Fantastic. So we haven't had an executive meeting in quite a while, so we'll coordinate that. Jim and I spoke a little bit earlier as we were preparing for making sure he still wanted to do it. He emailed me last month. So, but we'll work on setting up an executive meeting here for the chapter here pretty soon before our next regular meeting, and work out some of the details and maybe some other future actions as well. Exciting stuff. Fantastic. All right. Otherwise, some recent events, chapter updates. So just wanted to give everyone a quick update on some chapter things. The guidance from ASSP is that all of our meetings will stay virtual until 31 March so far. That's the guidance. I'm sure we're going to reevaluate this as the time progresses, and that's the current guidance that we've heard. There's no travel for regional leaders. If you've been with the chapter for a while, you know that usually we'll invite a regional leader and they'll come and talk with us. But since we're virtual, there's no physical travel, but we could certainly consider a virtual request to have some of our area directors chime in on some of our meetings as we're getting some more connectivity or with our members. There is a ROC meeting that's coming up, and that's going to be April of 2021. That's still scheduled for Hawaii. They're going to give that one another go and see how that works out. But of course, that's a very bold asterisk of how that's going to work out. So we'll just keep an eye on the status of things. And then for anyone that is experiencing any hardship right now, there is a hardship membership opportunity. So this is pretty neat. If anyone has had a status in their employment change due to the current pandemic, then ASSP is offering a hardship option. So if you would like to explore continuing your membership, but you're not quite sure as far as employment goes right now, then please contact ASSP customer service and they can help work you through any considerations if that's something that you would like to pursue. And then OR-OSHA recently published their temporary rule, and it's right there on their website. They have some measures that need to be put into place immediately, and then some that are drawn out over time as well. So if you're not familiar with that, I encourage everyone to spend some time looking over the new temporary rule from OR-OSHA. And well, we're not there yet. Good gravy. We're not trying to say goodbye just yet. So one of the things that I wanted to try and cover today was a review of some of the ASSP website benefits and also just membership benefits. And so I had a couple things lined up that I wanted to go over, and I wanted to show everybody while we were doing this. But unfortunately, as I tried to log in just prior to the meeting, the ASSP website was down. So I called them, and it just happens to be the most terrible timing. They've probably never been down in the history of their website, but the time that I wanted to show it was the time that whoever the service provider was for the web page, they were having some type of a disruption. So in any case, the site is relatively reliable. This is actually the only time that I've ever had any trouble with it, but maybe we can move that to next month. I don't want to kind of shortchange that, but that way we can kind of experience, because I know I have a hard time scheduling time to explore these types of websites. And I think maybe if we could do it during the meeting, it could give everybody a chance. So just looking at some of the options, there's plenty of, certification and training opportunities and advocacy with government affairs. And if you're really into how some standards get published, of course, ASSP has a fantastic presence in publishing new standards as well. So I think we're just going to have to move that to next month. But one of the things that I can go ahead and share with the benefits of the membership, and that is having an opportunity to network, which is a little bit different now, of course. And I think we can explore how we make our membership known for our peer group, so that way we can know which industries we're representing and who, increasing the ability, maybe a directory of members, so that way we can contact people. And I know we mentioned that a little bit last time. And one of the things that I'll share from my experience is just shortly after joining ASSP as a member, I was tasked with working on some confined space issues, and I was able to contact some of our eWeb partners. So Lance was there, and him and eWeb were Mark is who I was trying to think of. Were really welcoming and saying, hey, here's our policy, here's how we do things. And we spent, I don't know, it was a couple hours that we spent together, Lance. I don't know if you remember us talking that time. It was a few years ago, but it was a really great experience of just peer-to-peer collaboration, talking about how these tasks are performed and how to make it better. So I really appreciated that opportunity, and it really got me more excited to participate with our ASSP chapter. So otherwise, if anyone else had any other positive experiences or small gems of wisdom from your ASSP membership, if you wanted to open that up and talk about it now, or if we had any other topic that someone would like to share with the chapter, I'd like to open it up for everyone to have that opportunity now.
Looks like Lance has his hand up.
Great, come on in, Lance.
Yeah, thanks, Christy and Dennis. I can echo what Dennis is saying. I mean, this is a great group to get together, and everyone is willing to just provide the information that they have. We have a ton of subject matter experts in safety and in particular areas around the city. And, it's a resource that I think as a safety professional, if you're not utilizing it, you're really cutting yourself short on some benefits that are available to you. And I think, from my experience, it's a chapter, a group that I'm going to be participating in far into the future, because there's tons of benefit, not only to myself, but to others in the community. And we're all here, really. I'm not here just to make sure that eWeb employees are safe, right? I'm here to make sure that all of us, everyone at Peace Health or SAFE or the city or wherever, can benefit from my knowledge. And so eWeb has been a really great sponsor in that community awareness around safety, and I really enjoy participating in ASSP.
Awesome. It looks like Naomi's hand's up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naomi Hernandez, and I also work for SAFE Corporation. And I recently started getting connected with the Hispanic subgroup at the national level. And I'm working on establishing a point of contact, which most likely is going to be me, for the state of Oregon. And I'm working with the other chapters as well. So I'll be that point of contact for that Hispanic subgroup. And biggest need within this subgroup, of course, is material in Spanish, and so there's a big need for that. So it's super important that we do have a connection to this small group of the subgroup at the national level. And there is 2 chapters out of California that are very successful with being involved within ASSP and putting some of those trainings together that will be in Spanish. And right now the thing is webinars, but I think they've also put other trainings at the national conference. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that and expanding our Hispanic subgroup within the state of Oregon. So it looks like for now, I'll be that contact and see how else we can branch into the other chapters within the state of Oregon. So I just wanted to share with you all on that aspect.
Excellent, Naomi. I don't know if you got to connect with Katie Gonsalves before she went off on parental leave, but I'm sure she'd partner with you in any of those efforts as well.
Okay,
and
perfect.
And I'll add in, so I joined this group in 2010, which is 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years. And I came in behind somebody who was still on the job and brought me into ASSP, and he was already on the board. And to be quite honest, it didn't feel like a choice, which is fine. I mean, it was like, this is just what we do. And it has been a tremendous gift. There have been so many people who have reached a hand out and just said, hey, let's talk about things, or called me when they saw things happening in the field that maybe was not the safest practice, to kind of alert us to things that were happening. I know Lance has been a great partner, he and Mark. I know Mary Lou from Wildish, who's not been joining us recently. When I was first really learning about silica, we sat down and exchanged information and talked about air sampling. And it was a huge gift to me to be able to do that with somebody else and not feel like I had any stupid questions. And the other benefit I found in this group is there's a subgroup called the WISE group, Women in Safety Engineering. And they have some webinars that they've presented that I found really exceptional. And sometimes they're overviews of different OSHA regulations that have come out. Sometimes it's the political climate and how it affects safety regulations. And I've just found that subgroup to be a really beneficial resource as well. So thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Christy. So with nothing else really on our agenda for today, I would like to open it up to our attendees today. If there was any topic that you would like to hear more about for maybe next month or even for the future, if there's any ideas that we could take down to make this more valuable for you to attend. And if you want to add that in the chat or just unmute, we can try and take turns and see if we don't step on each other. Mr. Johnson, go ahead. We can't hear you, Jim, if you were talking. All right, I think we might give Jim a minute to work out his audio. Thomas, so you had your hand up there.
Sure. It's exciting to hear everyone's story. I've been involved with ASSC since 1997 when I first came to town. There was a gentleman who both worked in Roseburg as well as Eugene, and invited me to my first one back when it was at the Wild Duck in that dark hall room, for those of you that were around then. Just recently found several of my old ASSC cards as I was going through some old information. The big thing, I think, is it has opened many avenues for us to network over the years. We've made lots of connections. I think some of my first Spanish connections came through talking to some OSHA compliance people at one of the meetings, and opened up a whole bunch of resources for meeting the need in the community. But I have to say that no matter what job I have had over the years, over the last 20+ years, I've always tried to make meetings, and sometimes even if the job wasn't that interested in me having a lunch off, I was trying to see what I could do to get there. Anyway, I just appreciate everyone, and it's quite a great community.
Great, thanks for your long time membership and commitment to the chapter, Thomas. So Jim, I see your hand still up there. Any luck with the audio?
And so I do see that Jim typed into the chat, sorry, my audio is messed up. I was wondering how the chapter's finances were being impacted by the pandemic. Are we spending less or about the same?
So I don't know if we have our treasurer on, Mr. David Lindelin, but we haven't had any significant expenses that I'm aware of lately. So it's been pretty neutral. The only significant change recently would be the separation of the Broken Top chapter. So we'll be losing those dues as far as part of our chapter. But otherwise, there have not been any other expenses. And maybe we can reach out to David to see if there's any other considerations. All right. Any other topics that we want to discuss before we sign off for the day?
I'm sure somebody wants to talk about COVID. I can't imagine we go out unscathed. Mr. Wallace popped up.
Yes, you brought up the favorite word. No, so I just was brainstorming, thinking, what we can do as a chapter, to leverage the situations that we're having to deal with currently, and potentially use that as a recruiting tool to get more people involved in our chapter. I think with COVID, I've talked to multiple businesses over the last year, just helping provide resources and things as we kind of go through this situation. And I'm finding that there are a lot more that are not aware of us than there are that do know about us. And I think the spotlight has really been put on our profession in the last several months. And if there's any silver lining or bright light that I think we can get out of any of this, is maybe we can utilize that to build an even better foundation, a bit bigger base. I just want to get people's thoughts on that and see what we think we might be able to do and how we might be able to generate more attendees.
I think there's got to be an opportunity to broaden our presence so that way we can be better known, just as you're saying, Jason. And I don't have anything off the top of my head, but I think maybe that's something we can all take back, and we'll get an executive meeting scheduled, and maybe that's one of the topics that we can talk about there to bring back to membership to see how we can accomplish that as a goal.
Yeah, I think it's something definitely worth looking at. I'm just finding more and more, and there's more people. There are more companies that are starting to venture down the avenue of realizing, hey, I need a safety person or a risk management person. I need somebody to fill in this role that HR just can't do it all anymore. And I think it's just presenting that opportunity for us that we can really branch out and show people that we are here. We can help. And share those resources, because it's especially with COVID, I've helped more than a dozen businesses with policies because they've sat back and go, we have no clue how to decipher this. This is not our forte. This isn't hiring and firing. What do we do? So take advantage of it.
Looks like we've got Thomas, then Jim Nusser.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in there that a few months back now, when I first became a COVID officer, I was looking for who had the most recent publications and information on what does it mean to do that. And there's many people that have been thrust in that position, and many of them don't have a safety background. Just reaching out around COVID, I think, is a good thing. We do have our Facebook presence, which is underutilized, as well as we did have at one point a starting LinkedIn profile. Those kind of things could be cross-pollinating for getting outside of our safety silo, so to speak. But basically sharing any of that kind of information to a broader public is definitely worthwhile.
The other piece I was going to add was I thought, maybe for today, as we're talking, if folks would like to, I'd be curious if folks wanted to share either kind of as with regards to the Oregon and OSHA, new temporary rule, kind of what you feel like you're doing that's you found to be successful as you're trying to meet some of those requirements and trying to implement what is required, or if folks want to share, something that they found to be challenging, that they're interested in hearing about how other businesses are dealing with it. I thought we might spend a little bit of time on that. The other piece that I thought I would offer as a resource, and I'll put it into the chat, is just kind of a resource that I thought was helpful for businesses from OHSU for supervisors, kind of related to kind of the micro training on helping supervisors help their employees. And that was a resource that's unrelated to anything required by the rule, but related to COVID that I thought was helpful, particularly now that we're getting into kind of wintertime, more of a lockdown and less opportunities for folks to be social. I think it's even more important for supervisors to be kind of out there and thinking about how they can support their employees. And I thought this was a nice training that helped to do that. But I don't know if anyone else wants to share either what they feel like is going well with the OR-OSHA rule or challenges or questions you have that others might be able to help answer. But as I've been working with businesses recently, I think that's been on a lot of people's minds. And so maybe we could, if it would be valuable for folks, we could spend a little more time talking about that.
Well, so I will, because I'm always willing to put myself out on the line to get us started in a conversation. One of the things we've really struggled with is just keeping up with the ever-changing guidance, right? And how do you get that out? I work for the Public Works Department for the local municipality. And so it can be a challenge to share information. And by the time they get the information, it's modified, or we have a policy created within our leadership that is beyond the OSHA regulation that changes. And so then people have different understandings. And so we spend a lot of time sort of chasing that information. That has been a little bit of a challenge. The other is, I think whatever your dynamics are get magnified, right? So we tend to run pretty independent, but now all of a sudden there's another group giving us direction and we don't know kind of how to work together on those issues. And so we don't have that collaborative thing built. And so sometimes we'll step forward or they'll step forward and then we're like, well, wait a minute, you missed this, or we needed that, or this was really awesome. I wish we had that last week, or whatever it is. So it's just interesting to see how all of those relationships you build day in and day out and all those work practices either help or hinder you. Jason?
Yeah, I kind of just mirror just what you were saying there, Christy. I think, as a company, I work as the risk manager for Glory Bee, and throughout this whole thing, we've tried to be very proactive. And I think, the across our industry, a lot of people have just tried to go with the flow, and as things would happen, then they'd react to what that change is. And we found it very useful on our end, and it's reduced a whole lot of our employee stress and the anxiety when we've kind of looked at what's the going trend, what seems to be happening, not just here locally, but across our state, and venturing nationally and then through the Northwest to see what's likely coming down, what's likely, what is the likely direction we're going, and taking those steps and voicing them ahead of time with our team. And then when that move finally does come down as something that, okay, now we're changing this and we're changing this, we've already done it, or we're already in the process of doing that. We found that just really, it's made it a whole lot easier, and we've gotten a lot less kickback from our staff, because of the consistent changing conditions. We've also really pushed the communication amongst our team, providing the EAP benefits and making sure they all have that stuff, reaching out to their families, making sure that they're holding out well. What we found has been very helpful with our organization is making it known to them that as a leadership team, it's not just about looking at that bottom dollar of, as a company, we have to function and we have to operate and this is what we need to do. But personally, we need you, and we need you healthy, you happy, you less stressed about yourself, your family, your kids, and trying to do what we can to provide resources to them, both individually and at the company level. So take advantage of a lot of those resources, whether it be ASSP, SAFE, Oregon OSHA, National Safety Council, whatever it may be. There's a ton of resources out there to really put you ahead of the curve on what's going on and to address it. because they're really leaning on us for the answers. They've got a lot of questions and they think we know all the answers. And clearly we're all learning as we go.
Jim.
The other one, the resource I thought I'd share, kind of related to the standard I just put in the chat as well, was a training link to a kind of PowerPoint trainings that I thought were well done by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. And they posted on their site the PowerPoint so that you can take the PowerPoint and edit it and kind of do whatever you want, delete the slides. Honestly, some of what's in the PowerPoint from my perspective is a little too much. I think if you're doing training for your employees, it's got quite a bit of slides. But I think if you're wanting to meet the OR-OSHA training requirement, kind of sooner rather than later, that can be something that you could use as a template. I did get a note from one of my colleagues from the contact at OR-OSHA that Wade Phillips sent, and he mentioned that OR-OSHA is still working on developing the trainings, and the note that I got was that they hope to launch their trainings in mid-December, and their efforts are currently being divided into creating 2 different courses, one an overview of the COVID-19 temporary rule, and the other being a COVID-19 employee training to fulfill some of the training requirements. And so OR-OSHA is hoping to have that come out in mid-December. So yeah, and with that, on to you, Kevin.
Good morning. Hey, Jim, you hit on one of the things I was going to say. The other one, in case you guys, I joined a little late here, but Michael Wood is doing a Facebook Live this Friday. I don't know if you saw the link for that. I could put it in the post here in a second, but that he's going to do a Q&A. So hopefully clear up some of the gray that we're all scratching our head about right now. And I was going to chime in about they are developing some training, hopefully to come out in December.
That's great information. The link would be appreciated. And I will plan to send out all of these wonderful links with the recording shortly after the meeting. So if you want to reference them later, you should be able to open this meeting up if you leave it and get back to the chat. But just in case, I'll make sure you got it on your email.
I just shared an exposure timeline image that is, I think, quite helpful on our ASSE chapter Facebook page, but it shows about incubation timeline and exposures. I think it's helpful for the general public.
Excellent. Anything else COVID related you guys want to talk about? Well, I'm an emergency management person as well as a safety person. So I'm going to mention that we're preparing for our winter storm events. I work for Public Works, so we tend to plow roads and place de-icer and gravel and deal with trees when they fall during ice and snow conditions. So we are doing a little bit of an adjustment, trying to figure out how we run those events in a COVID environment, which we're still working out all of the details. So that's going to be an interesting adventure for us. And because it's 2020, we expect that we will have a snow event. We've also had some hiccups this year. We're in our LEAF program right now, just about to start, but we've had some staffing issues related to COVID. So we're getting to practice a little bit on the front end before it's an emergency event, trying to beta test some of our policies and procedures, as well as what our workforce looks like when it's in a much reduced footprint. So if you have things like that that apply to your workplace, now's a good time to be leaning forward a little bit. It's a La Nina year, which I think means it's going to be warmer and wetter. So it isn't usually the type of year that we get our most significant snow events, but in the top 10 snow events in Oregon, I think 3 of them were in La Nina years. So if that means anything to any of you folks.
I think being 2020, we're expecting flammable snow.
Who knows what it will be?
Kevin, if you can repost that Facebook link, the back end cutoff.
Looked like it opened fine for me.
Yeah, it delayed coming through. Yeah, I finally got it too.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Well,
All right.
glad I could fix that.
Thomas, were you saying that you posted a graphic in the chat, or was that on the ASSP Facebook page?
ASSP Facebook page. It's
Okay.
second one down. There's that lung thing on COVID from April that's still pinned up there, but
All right. Looks like Naomi has her hand up.
Yes, any idea on venue replacement for Sizzlers? Is that something that you guys are still considering looking into for when we do go back to normal?
We haven't had any discussions yet.
Okay.
And like I was saying earlier, we're still stuck doing virtual at least
Virtual.
until 31 March. That's ASSP guidance. We'll see if Governor Brown or someone else says some superseding guidance that will follow. But
Okay.
Naomi, I think you have a really good point, though, because I think the virtual environment has also brought people in who wouldn't travel to
Mhm.
visit with us. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get to like a hybrid approach or have, every other meeting in person and every other meeting virtual or something. But I think this opened up an opportunity for us to really look at how we do things. And if we're talking about getting the word out about the resources ASSP and this network could bring to businesses, it
Mhm.
might be an easier sell to other businesses if their employee can hop on a meeting, click a link versus spend all the time traveling, coming, paying for a lunch and meeting with us. So if we're really, so it could be used as a recruitment strategy as well. It certainly doesn't replace, me being able to heckle the Hughes brothers at the beginning of a meeting, but there's pros and cons with everything.
No, understand. Thank you. No, I was just wondering if there is a location that we're looking into. I know that everything's still up in the air for some places. I know for us at Say we won't be doing any in-person activities until after the second quarter of 2021, but I do know that for some avenues, they're starting to look into booking their places in 2021, and just was wondering. Thank you.
Jason, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just kind of echoing off that, I was thinking as we venture out, eventually we will get back to that new normal, to somewhat of a normal, but I think it's going to be changed. Maybe as an executive team, we have the conversation of purchasing equipment so that we can host in-person meetings with a virtual option, having the web camera and some of that. I know we kind of all tend to bounce around with, getting equipment and projectors and stuff like that, depending on what's going on. But that might be a chapter expense that can help us tag into that virtual mode.
I tend to agree with you. The big question is always, where do we store it when you're an all volunteer organization, right? Somebody gets to pack it around and store it in your office and deliver it. But those are logistics we can always work out.
Yeah, I think, again, tapping that resource that as this changes,
yeah,
good to look at.
Yeah.
Well, even if we got some of our team together, everyone's trying to create these resources as well. So whether it's OSHA and SAFE and others pulling their money, and we can have a shared resource in the community or a shared venue even.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to train.
Well, I'll have to rely on you folks who are technology experts because it's not my strength. I get there, but I need a little help. So Naomi, can I go back to the Sizzler for a minute? Is the Sizzler an okay venue for most folks? Is there anything that we're missing as far as, going back to that location?
The piece that I guess I would add is my understanding is Sizzler is out of business or out of business, and maybe that'll change after the pandemic. Somebody else will buy it and reopen it, but I don't know that that's going to be an option. So I imagine it'll just be one where at our next executive meeting, we can start thinking about that, even though it'll be a while before we meet in person.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, I second what Jim said. That was my understanding is they're not planning to reopen.
Okay. Sounds like something for the executive board to wrestle with. All right, any other safety challenges, stories, anything you'd like to share with the grader, with the rest of the group? Any resources, trainings, anything you want to share? All right, Mr. President, do you have anything for the group before we end our meeting?
I don't. Thanks everybody so much for your input and for your time today. This was a really good discussion. Thanks for joining.
And it sounds like we're planning to maybe at the December meeting, trying to get to that ASSP webpage and share that resource. But if anybody has a topic you'd like to talk about or information you'd like to share, let Jason Wallace or I know. We'd be happy to put you on the agenda. It doesn't have to be 45 minutes long. It can be 10 minutes. It can be anything you need it to be. Just let us know if you've got something you'd like to share.
And just to look to the future, there's a lot of probably more formal stuff that we can do on COVID, and I have a lot of stuff that I'm doing with the fire related stuff that could probably be brought in.
Let us know when you want to present, Thomas. We'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. All right. Well, I guess with that, we'll end our November meeting. Thank you all for coming. It was a pleasure to see you virtually, hear your voices.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You take care.
Thanks all.
You too. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving all.